Welcome back, explorers, to part 2 of the GBLS DAS M4 overview. And now that we got it all put together and it's working, let's take it through the paces and kind of establish a baseline before we go ahead and do anything to this thing. The only thing I did do was swap out my charging handle for a Neotech. Because I'm doing an accuracy test, I wanted to have an Opticon here because it's going to have me line up in the same place every time. So other than that, the gun is completely stock. The other reason I also wanted to put the Opticon is the front side is really wobbly. I wanted to point that out before we went too far. I am planning on completely replacing the front end, so I'll either have no front side or flip off front side. So not a real issue. The important thing is the barrel is not wobbly, it's just the sight. So it's not exactly something you'd want to rely on for accuracy. But the barrel is rock solid, and that's the part that really matters. Moving on, another thing I want to point out is this gun already comes with a PTS grip installed. Another huge bonus in my opinion. I'm not a fan of the standard A2 grip with the little notch here, so I'm glad it already has a nice modular modern grip. So the primary reason I want to do this second video is to show you why this gun is so cool. After reading the comments from the first video, there was a lot of pushback. I think some people are not quite on board, and to some people this is just not the right gun. People that are looking for this to be the ultimate performing gun, as in the most accurate, the fastest rate of fire, just the best gun for the airsoft field where if nothing else, you'll have the most superior gun and you can outgun anyone. This is not the gun. The purpose of this gun is not to be the most efficient and practical airsoft gun by far. That already exists. That's a Polar Star or a ProTech engine. Go ahead, drop that in, set up your settings, and you're gonna have a gun that with zero recoil, great consistency, which leads to great accuracy. So if you're looking for best performing gun, this is not the gun for you. This is the gun for someone who's looking for a realistic experience in airsoft. And I say realistic as in the function is realistic. Obviously, when you shoot this thing and if you shot a real AR or real anything, you're not going to all of a sudden be confused if you're shooting a real gun or not. This is an airsoft gun and it performs like an airsoft gun. But the way you get to the point where you're ready to shoot the gun is completely authentic, which is what's really cool about this gun. So let me take you through it step by step. Take the mag out. I do have the battery in here, but the gun is empty. But I'll be like an internet safety nerd and double check, make sure there's nothing in the chamber. I'm gonna have to fire it out. Alright, so now it's completely empty. We're good to go. This is the GBLS M4. It looks like every other M4, but the function, that's the fun part. So let me take you through the steps of loading the gun. I'm gonna use an empty mag just because I'm indoors and I don't have my iPro on, but it gets the point across nonetheless. So first thing you do, put your mag in. Like a real AR or a real gas blowback, you can't put on safe when the gun's not cocked. So let's cock it. Now because the mag is empty, the bolt is going to stay to the rear as if you just shot your final round and the bolt locked back. Very cool. Now you could send it home two ways. First you could do the bolt release, of course. And that would chamber around and you would be ready to shoot. The other way, let me lock it back. If it's locked back, and it's not going to work because I have no BB in there, but when you have a BB in there, you could, if you feel like you want to torture your hands a little bit, pull all the way back and let it go. Again, exactly like the real thing, so you have two ways to chamber around, super realistic. So once you do have the round chamber, now you could put in safe. Because the gun is cocked, now you could put in safe. Of course, you have your standard fire mode, semi and auto. Now, here's the part of this gun that's probably so far its biggest obstacle, I would say. And that's the trigger. But the good news is, GBLS is already working on fixing this. They got the feedback, it's coming back quickly, and they've realized this trigger pull is way too heavy. It's literally over 10 pounds right now, some 10 point something, which is nuts. I understand real triggers are somewhere half that, somewhere between 3 and 6, and some of these feathered triggers that maybe the competition shooters use are 1 or 2 pounds. So 10 pounds feels like a nightmare. If you shot an AG, you shot a GBB, this is the toughest trigger I've ever felt. There's almost no take up. Let me show you. This is the take up. It's a little click, and then you hit the wall. And the wall is a concrete rebar reinforced wall. You really gotta pull. And for the first time you shoot this thing, you'll probably think you're doing something wrong. Maybe you didn't cock the gun, or you have the safety on, but no, that's how it is. You pull through. And as you can see, because I have no BBs in there, the bolt locks back. So when you're out and you go to shoot, nothing happens. That's good. You know you're out. You take the mag out, put the new mag in, send the bolt home, and you're good to go. It's extremely satisfying. I mean, this gun is fun to mess around with. I don't know if it justifies the $2,500 price. Probably not, but just to play around with this gun and do tack reloads and basically have it function like a real gun, tons of fun. Now here's another cool feature. Let me disconnect the battery, which of course is back here, as you saw in part 1. When you go to disconnect the battery or switch the battery, you're done with the gun for the day. First thing you want to do is drop the cylinder, release the tension off of it inside the bolt carrier group. Then pop open the gun. Again, extremely realistic, breaks in half. And then push on this trigger lever, I believe. You will hear it click. See, right now it's tensioned and now it's loose. I just push all the freaking levers in here because I'm not 100% sure which one I'm supposed to push, but if you push all of them, I figure you're safe. So let's close it up. Now here's another cool feature of this gun. Because it functions the way it does, where every time the bolt cycles back, it cocks the gun. Anytime you do this, you cock the gun. It basically is a spring rifle at that point. So let's say your battery dies. Well, you can still shoot. It's as if your AR is not getting enough gas in there and the bolt can't cycle it. You could manually cycle 1 round at a time and you could shoot. Now you can only shoot once, but you basically have a spring powered rifle. If your battery goes down or if anything happens, as long as you could cycle the bolt, you could shoot this thing. Of course, you don't want to pay $2,500 for a spring rifle. You could get those for much cheaper, but it's a cool feature. It's an air powered rifle. You'll never be out of the fight. Wow, I just sound like one of those internet tactic commandos. But anyway, you know what I'm saying. You could still play. You could finish the game. You don't have to limp off the field or switch to a secondary. As you can see, it's a pretty cool gun. It does stuff that no AEG does. I know there's AEGs that simulate last round lockback, but it's electronic. You have to push the bolt release and nothing happens. You just push it and it tells the computer that, oh, okay, he's reloaded the mag, so you could shoot again. This, the bolt is back. You can't. You have to go ahead and slam the bolt forward, which is extremely satisfying. As far as recoil goes, this gun definitely does have recoil because there's a moving part. You're not going to end up with a sore shoulder at the end of the day, but it's fun. It adds a little bit more realism. Airsoft is slowly creeping towards that realism, making it as real as possible. Now, of course, the most popular comment I probably got, other than 2,500 is way too much, which I have to agree with. That's a lot of money. Like, people mentioned they could buy a used car for that, and it's true. The second most popular comment was, I'm sticking with my GBB. What I don't like about gas blowbacks, I don't consider them outdoor worthy guns. I know a lot of people use them out there, but you're going up against AEGs, which have basically unlimited ammo and decent rates of fire and consistency, which is the biggest thing they're giving up. You don't need 1,000 rounds to be competitive, but you need each round to go the same place where the previous round went, assuming you're doing everything right. And it's hard to do that with a GBB that's fed, with traditional green gas or propane. You could HPA tap, but then you get into the whole land of hoses, which I personally don't like at all. This gun aims to get rid of that disadvantage, but still retain all the fun and cool and functional, realistic stuff of an AR that you do want from a GBBR in an AEG package. So no hoses, which to me is huge. I know some people don't care. To me, it's massive. I don't like hoses. I don't like tanks. It's just a big pain. I understand the advantages, and I have a couple guns that use them, and it makes sense, but if given the option, I would always choose a gun that I don't have to be tethered to. Like I mentioned before, power supply. Don't have to buy green gas. Take these batteries, plug them into your charger while you're on the computer, and you're done. You're good to go. You're good to play. You don't have to go to the paintball store before it closes. Magazines. This thing comes with 6 magazines. I know you're paying a hefty price, but that's probably all you're going to need. They're proprietary, so that's a minus. They claim to hold 60 rounds. I say that's pretty accurate. They're really hard to load, but they probably hold somewhere around 50, 60 rounds. The loading devices that I tried it with first just using my finger to kind of create a ramp for the BBs to go in. That worked okay. You can get a few BBs in there. Once the spring starts tensioning up, it's a lot harder. Then I used the speed loader from my KJW GBBR, and it sort of worked, but the magazine dimensions are a little different, so it's kind of hit and miss. When you get it, you'll get like 20 BBs in there at one time, which was great, but when you miss it, you just have a huge spill of BBs all over the place. And then I finally found the gas magazine adapter for the speed loader that goes on the front of it, and then it kind of guides the BBs down this curved ramp in there, and that seems to work pretty well. So treat this magazine, as far as loading goes, as gas magazine, because it has the feed lips and you need to get stuff through the feed lips. You can't just go over the top. All right, enough of me talking. You kind of saw how the gun works. Now let's go and test it for the performance basics. So let's test the accuracy, and let's test the RPS and the FPS, and then we'll come back to wrap everything up. Next up, let's test the accuracy of this gun. I'm about 60 feet away from the target. I got an easy to see target down there. I have my GBLS M4, batteries in. I sighted in my EOTech here, so the BB should be hitting right about where my reticle is lined up. I have a magazine filled with 0.28 gram Crytek BBs, and they recommend using hard BBs because of the bolt slamming on the BBs. You don't want something soft in there that could shatter, so like tracer BBs, that could be bad. These have been working fine for me, so let's see how they go. The idea is I'm going to try to aim for the center every time, and we want to see the grouping, not so much me hitting the bullseye, because that doesn't really matter. We could adjust for that. But how consistent it is from shot to shot, I'm going to try to be as consistent as possible. I have this ammo box to lay on, and I'm just going to aim towards the center and pull that trigger back as smoothly as possible. So let's give it a shot. Alright, well, sounds like I missed the box altogether about 2 times. That's a little bigger than the headshot target out there at 60 feet. Let's go in closer and see how it looks. So the majority of the BBs is about a hand size grouping. A couple I think went off the paper, probably a little high, but you know, not bad for something so new and something so stock. So as you saw, the FPS is somewhere in the mid to high 300s, between 350 and 370 or so. It does jump up and down about 20 rounds, give or take, but we'll have to see how that actually influences it out there on the field when we use it in the game. And then the rounds per second was between 10 and 12 rounds, which is a little low for most AEGs, but for something with a full moving bolt, I think it's reasonable. And a real M4, I believe, shoots around 700 to 950 rounds per minute. And if you extrapolate that to per second, 12 rounds per second is about close to 700 rounds per minute. So if you're looking for realism, it's pretty close to the real thing. And because of the trigger, you're probably not going to outrun this gun on semi. Hopefully when GBLS does fix it and makes it a lighter trigger, that will speed things up and it'll be a much more user-friendly gun on semi-auto. So then we moved on to the accuracy, and as you saw, that was a pretty decent accuracy. I've shot a lot of guns from that range. Anytime I get a gun, that's where I shoot it from. And it's right on par with pretty much any AG right out of the box. As you saw, the grouping was about the size of my hand, and I have pretty average size hands, so that's not bad. At 60 feet, that's half a head, quarter of a head, I don't know. Pretty decent. So I think this gun could probably reach out comfortably to 100, 150 feet. And for a stock M4, that's pretty decent. I think it's a lot more accurate than a lot of even M4s, traditional M4s in this category, in this size. So overall, I'm really impressed with the gun. I do have to mention I did have some fuse problems with the gun. When I went to visit Greg Wong at Airsoft Extreme and we compared our two guns, we did go through a couple of fuses. Now, what seems to have remedied that is adding a ton of grease on the bolt, and then they put some grease into the gearbox because you could get to it real easy since it's a split gearbox. So I caked everything in grease, and since then I haven't had a fuse burnout, and I've shot a ton of full auto, lots of semi-auto, lots of air cocking, dry firing, so it seems to have helped. So if you get this gun, just coat it in grease. GBLS is telling me I might have a unique problem that they've only discovered in a couple of units, so I might send them the lower to get that fixed. But right now it's working, and I hope to use it in the game really soon. But just be aware, the grease is really important. They mentioned it, I read it, I added grease, but I thought it was like, you know, it's a formality. What I think is happening is because you have metal rubbing on metal, I think a lot of the parts are breaking in. I'm already seeing a lot of wear. So I think as we go, the more I shoot, I'm only maybe 400 rounds into this thing. The more I shoot, especially full auto, it's going to grind away those trouble parts and it's going to smooth everything up. So it's kind of sanding itself to the perfect thing. I would compare it to a Daytona gun. When you first get that thing, the bolt hardly moves. And then you lube it and you shoot it and you dry fire it, and slowly it wears away and it becomes real smooth. I think a similar thing is happening here. The bolt is wearing in, the upper receiver that holds it is wearing in. Eventually you're going to get nice smooth movement here. My concern is what happens when I take this to the game and the dust cover is open, this lands in the ground, I get this covered with dirt, I go to shoot it, now there's dirt in the system. Does the gun just come to a halt? Does it just freeze up? Does it burn a fuse? I don't know. This is why I test every gun in the game, because I want to know how it performs in the field. Being here in a clean garage or shooting it off a tabletop, it's good for baseline stuff. It's not great for durability and long-term stuff. So I'm going to test it in the game. And on that note, make sure you close the dust cover when you're not using this thing. It's actually functional. You don't want to get dirt in the system here because you have so many moving parts. So keep that closed. But of course, when you go to shoot it, the cover will pop open because, like everything else on this gun, that's how the real thing works. So another cool little feature that makes this gun realistic, and it's the little touches that really kind of add up to make this thing really cool and really desirable. I like this thing a lot. Alright guys, enough of me rambling. Let's see if we could get this thing into a game and get some big gameplay footage. But thanks for watching, thanks for supporting the channel. Be sure to subscribe, it helps out a lot. Put your comments down below, let me know what you want to see. And as always, you'll see me on the next one.